7 years ago this week, President Obama did an internet press conference where he took questions which had been submitted via the internet. This was notable 7 years ago, Lewis. I mean, that's the crazy thing. In the 7 years, when I tell you now that President Obama took questions submitted via the internet in an internet press conference, you would say, well, who cares? How is that even remotely notable? But 7 years ago, it was.
It was. Bush could have just as easily done the same type of thing. But are we suggesting that this was kind of monumental because it was unprecedented at the time?
Well, I think what I'm suggesting is we have seen one of the biggest changes in society we've seen during President Obama's 2 terms is the way in which the internet in politics has become totally mainstream. Any poll now that doesn't properly sample mobile phones is not considered a legitimate poll. 2 elections ago, that was a very, very different case where we were only starting to hear from people like Scott Keeter at the Pew Research Center that they're starting to consider if they can't reach someone via a landline because they don't have one, how are we going to integrate that into a sample? If a poll now includes only landlines, we basically dismiss it as not a good poll. More and more computerized voting, for better or worse. There are those who argue that that is bad. There are those who argue that is good because there are no paper ballots to lose, although on the other side could potentially be manipulated. It's completely normal that big news is breaking first online, and investigative journalism has significantly been reduced on corporate media and increased online. We've had Facebook-sponsored presidential debates. YouTube submitted questions to those debates. This has been mainstream. Do you think that these changes that we've seen during the 7+ years of President Obama's 2 terms, has it been good or bad? I say mostly good with some caveats.
I say overwhelmingly good because, in my opinion, and you may disagree, the only reason we're seeing a self-described socialist become a successful mainstream
socialist.
Democratic, yes, but still a mainstream Democratic candidate is because of the internet and is because of social media.
Well, even when we go back to President Obama winning in 2008, at the time, it was that was earlier in the usage of the internet for political campaigns. The McCain campaign in 2008 was just a disaster with the internet. I mean, I was on both mailing lists, both as a potential voter and as a media person. And in both cases, the McCain campaign was doing very little with regard to reaching out through the internet, whereas the Obama campaign, as we know, really leveraged those tools. I say absolutely it has been mostly good. The caveats are, yeah, sometimes there's fake stories or stories that really don't deserve attention, which have space because there's no sort of limitation to the amount of space or time when it comes to online news. Sometimes people get tricked into believing fake stories. I guess that there was certainly less of a platform for that when you had fewer or no online media outlets. But overall, it has been overwhelmingly good. And to really remember how much the internet has affected politics, go back and look at what was going on in terms of internet and politics in 2008. And since it changes slowly over an 8-year period, sometimes you don't feel the change. But when you look back, and what I recently looked back at was, what did websites look like on 9/11, right? What was it like when you went onto a news website on September 11th? If you asked me offhandedly, what did news websites look like in 2001, I would have remembered them as looking way more streamlined and advanced than what you actually find when you look at the Wayback Machine online and see what did CNN.com look like on 9/11 2001. It's amazing how far we've come.
Yeah. So it has been important, and if you go back to the previous, even before Obama, I mean, when Bush was running, first term Bush, do you think that the internet was even a factor in that election?
I don't remember, but I feel like
minimal.
Very little.
I mean, it would have been minimal.
Minimal, absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. FreshBooks is offering David Pakman Show listeners a 30-day free trial of their service. I'm obviously the host of the David Pakman Show, but I also run the business that is the David Pakman Show, and I want to spend as much time as possible on the show and growing and improving my business. So FreshBooks lets you get paid more quickly. It helps with invoicing. It helps with so many of those business administration tools. And it's for freelancers and small businesses who want to get organized on those issues and really focus on growing the business. So to get your 30-day free trial of FreshBooks and support the David Pakman Show, go to gofreshbooks.com/TDPS. That's gofreshbooks.com/TDPS.